Flying Upstream, the show where we spotlight people choosing the unconventional path and living with courage, creativity, and purpose. Today's guest is someone who has turned excuse me, unimaginable pain into a mission to uplift others. Rob Ball was born and raised in southern Indiana and began playing piano by ear at just 4 years old. Music became a lifelong passion and later a fascination with cake decorating led him to pursue it at a master level, dreaming of owning his own bakery one day. But life had other plans. After suffering a traumatic brain injury, Rob was forced to let go of that dream. Instead of letting that loss define him, Rob created Life Rewired, a podcast raising awareness around brain injuries and reminding survivors that there is life after trauma. He speaks with survivors, caregivers, and professionals to bring hope, community, and visibility to an often overlooked experience. Rob is also known for his humor, his kindness, and his desire to make the world a little brighter for anyone he meets. He's a testament to the idea that brighter days are always within reach. Rob, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Kristen.
I'm so excited. So let's dive into some of these interesting things I just said. So you started playing piano by ear at 4. Can you
Yeah.
take us back to that time? What did music mean to you?
Yes. Well, the funny thing is, we did not own a piano, and an aunt had purchased one, and she lived on the second floor of an apartment building. And she says, "Can we store it at your house?" And my mom says, "Well, sure." And I was forbidden to touch it. And then about 2, 3 months later, we get another phone call from the aunt. She says, "I got another piano. Would you mind to store?" My mom goes, "Sure." So now we have two pianos that I'm dying to touch, and she wouldn't let me touch them. Well, remember years ago when like the videos on TV that would actually play music videos? So there was a old singer named Fats Domino, and there was a song called "Don't Mess with My Toot Toot." It's older than both of us combined. but, but anyway, I looked at my mom and I said, "I can play that." And she goes, "No, you can't." And I said, "Yes, I can." And she says, "Well, go show me." So I went over to the piano and I hit a few keys. And then in my head, I could just imagine what the notes were. And before you knew it, it was, "Don't mess with my toot toot." I was playing. From
Wow.
that day, my mom said, "You can play it anytime you want to." So anytime I had an opportunity, I was at that piano.
Wow, that's incredible. So do you still play or has your relationship with music changed over time?
It has changed because of the brain injury. But what I have learned to do is to limit myself. So I might go a few weeks without playing, and then I'll play maybe, just a half an hour at night before I go to bed. And that relaxes me. But yeah, it's definitely different because I used to you couldn't pull me away from the piano.
That's amazing. And I love that your inspiration to pursue cake decorating came from watching Cake Boss. So what drew you to that world?
That's a funny story. My wife surprised me with tickets because he was in town doing his tour, and she surprised me with tickets. And I bought his book, and it was at Thanksgiving time. And he says, "I'd encourage you guys to go home and make this turkey cake." And I looked at my wife and I said, "Hey, I'm going to do that." And she busted out laughing. And I was like, "What? You don't think I can?" She goes, "You barely bake anything." And I was like, "Okay." So I was off work that week for Thanksgiving. And while she was at work, I went to Joann's and bought every cake decorating supply you could think of. And I came home and I followed the directions on the book and I took a picture and sent it to her. She goes, "Who made that?" And I said, "I made it." So she showed it to her coworkers, who showed it to people, who showed it to people. And before you know it, everyone's, "Can you make my birthday cake for my kid? I want this 3D image
Wow.
of a shark." I'm like, "Sure."
Wow, that's really amazing. And also had the dream of opening a bakery. What did that symbolize for you, kind of opening this bakery?
Well, I loved the decorating part, and I thought, if I could have my own business, I could even expand more, make more people happy, because that's what my whole life has always been about. I
Mm.
always it wasn't about the money, and my wife always says, "You're not charging enough for your cakes." It's the smile on their face when they pick that cake up. That's what makes me happy.
That's so sweet. That's just beautiful. I really appreciate that. I think in life, just generally speaking, we can get so caught up in our own lives and we genuinely forget, not trying to hurt people, but we genuinely forget that things we do affect other people for
Hmm.
positive or negative. And what a
Right.
sweet thing that you had this focus. It's just who you authentically are is wanting to make people smile. It's just so
Yeah.
beautiful. All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So you're loving life, you're decorating cakes, you're playing the piano, and then came the traumatic brain injury. So, can
Yes.
you walk us through what happened and how it shifted your path?
Yes. Well, I have a severe allergy to bees. I will preface it with that. And we have a koi pond in our backyard. And every day on my last break, I always go outside and feed our fish. Well, I was coming in the door and a bee flew by my head just as I was opening that door. And I panicked and I bent down as I opened the door and I ended up with a 3-inch laceration to my head. I knocked myself out.
Mm.
I was only out for just minutes. It was maybe 2 to 3 minutes. When I came to my head, I had my hand on my head and I thought, oh, this is going to have a big knot on my head tomorrow. And then I pulled my hand away and I saw the blood and I was like, "Oh no, we're this is not good. This is so not good." So I went to the window. My wife was home by luck, and I started waving at her. She come running outside and she's like, "What happened?" All I could get to come out was B, B, B. And she's like, This didn't happen from just a bee." And then finally I was able to communicate to her what happened. And she's like, "We're getting you to the hospital right now." And I'm like, "Well, we gotta call my boss." I wasn't thinking about leaving work without calling my boss. So she appeased me because she knew that she wasn't going to win that argument. So she runs and grabs my phone, called my boss, and my boss goes, "Get to the hospital." And I will mention that this was like 3 months into COVID, and that's when they weren't letting people go back with you. It was a scary time back then.
It was.
I was so not myself. I couldn't form a thought really. So thankfully they let my wife go back with me. I don't know what I would have done if it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So, what were some of the most unexpected challenges that you faced in the aftermath of all this, be it physical, emotional, or mental?
Well, some of the challenges were the headaches because I've had a migraine level headache since it hit my head. I assumed that they would go away, which there's that's not saying if you get a concussion or a hit to your head that you're going to have nonstop migraines. But I was just the lucky one that got stuck with that. But the hospitals are not really great about wanting to tell you a lot of information. You're basically on your own when you walk out the door. They tell you go home and rest a few days and go back to work as needed. So I went home and I rested for a few days and a few more days. I'm like, this is not getting better. So finally went back to work. But to answer your question, um, the memory loss, I have very short term memory. My long term memory is awesome. I can still remember the night that I learned how to play piano. I could tell you where I had my first date with my wife and what table we sat at.
Oh,
If you ask me what I did last week, it ain't going to happen. So the memory loss has been a really um, challenge, a big challenge. The anxiety and the depression that comes with it, having to force a smile all day. So when the cameras aren't on and when I'm working, this room is dark to help keep the headaches down. So
mhm.
it's been a big challenge. And also, you probably wouldn't know it to look at me, but I used to weigh 144. My numbers come out weird because of the brain injury, but I was at the gym twice a day. I would do an hour in the morning and an hour at night on the elliptical because I was a big guy at one time. So I haven't quite got back to where I was, but with the medications and everything that they give you. It's and not being able to exercise. That's another thing.
I can imagine. That was a really difficult adjustment, to say the least, having it affect every single aspect of your life,
Mm,
not being able to do the things that you used to do daily or even just the things that you loved.
yeah,
And at a time when so many people would have completely withdrawn, you launched a podcast.
yeah.
So, what inspired Life Rewired?
What inspired it was I got very little sleep because of my head injury and because of the headaches and all that good stuff. I would lay in bed at night on my iPad and I would look on YouTube and I'd try to find what I'm doing now. All I could find were people that were like medical professionals saying, "Well, this is what a brain injury is like, and you get these kind of symptoms." I wanted real world experiences. I wanted to hear people that was experiencing the same things that I was going through, and I wanted encouragement, and I couldn't find it. And I was in a very small group. There was like 3 people in our group, and I told the therapist, I said, it's just frustrating that I can't find what I'm looking for. And she looked at me and she goes, then why don't you do it? Okay,
Mm.
then. Challenge accepted.
Right?
So that's how all that began.
That's amazing. I love hearing those kinds of stories where you can't find what you need in the world, and so you create it,
Mhm.
because there are for sure other people looking for the same thing that you're looking for. The
Right.
difference is that they turn off the light and go to sleep, and you decided to stay up,
Mm,
essentially.
right.
So I from your podcast and from talking to so many other people, survivors and caregivers on the show, what have you learned from all this?
Well, I've learned how important community is. I
Mm,
learned that when you're not in a mindset where this is it, my life gets no better than this, and then you surround yourself with other people that are going through the same challenges that you're going through, and you see the successes and you see people that aren't doing quite as well as you are. That's not to say that's a positive thing, but it puts you in a space where you think, it could be a lot worse. I mean, I couldn't be here. So it just gives you encouragement to keep going.
mm. And what's been the most healing or surprising moment for you since you started the podcast?
The most surprising is when I get emails from people that are watching it, because there's sometimes I think, is anyone listening? Is anyone really getting anything out of this? Because there's been a few times I was ready to pull the plug for it from it.
Mhm.
And then I'll get an email and a long thing saying, "Hey, you've changed my life. That I have gotten so much out of your what you're saying. I feel connected. I feel validated. And thank you for keep up the good work." And I'm like, this is to me. So that's been the most surprising thing to learn that what I'm doing is making a difference.
Yes, I imagine that you kinda get stuck in the moment, right, of,
Yeah.
like, your own life. You're just n all the changes that have come for you, and to hear somebody say that to you is, I can see how that would be surprising and also so humbling at the same time.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I know that you've said before that laughter is your way of giving back. So, how do you hold space for humor in the midst of pain and trauma?
I just do it. I learned early on you can sink or swim. And sinking just wasn't an option for me.
Mm.
And it just brings me so much joy when I can hear someone say, "You made my day. That's so funny." And so then I took to TikTok, and I'm known as Weatherman Rob on TikTok. So I get people all the time saying, "You crack me up," because every TikTok is different. But like the microphone will be a banana one day or a screwdriver. It's never a microphone. It's always something else besides a microphone. And I just get put myself in little strange situations. But I do that because I want people to laugh. There's too much negativity in this world. There's too much grumbling. And I don't like that. I want to leave. When I leave this world, I want people to say, he really made me happy.
Mm, that's just so sweet. And I think part of making people happy is helping them feel seen, heard, and uplifting them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
in that vein, what would you say to someone who feels stuck in their own pain right now? They're just really having trouble moving forward.
Yeah. First of all, I understand. And what you're going through is valid. That's the one thing that a lot of people, even if it's not a brain injury, if it's a broken arm or loss of a loved one, people are always looking for validation. And they want to know that, hey, I'm not crazy. What I'm going through actually is something. So I would first of all validate them and then say, hey, I'm here for you. And, doesn't matter what time of day it is. If you need to talk to me, call me. If you need to message me, I get a lot of messages, and I, sadly I miss a few for a while. But because of the podcast, I'm getting so many instant messages on Facebook, it's hard to keep up. But I answer every one of them, and I've gotten so many friends now from this. So there are brighter days ahead. That's what I really encourage people with.
I like that so much. It's just because I agree. It's hard when you're in a place of physical pain, sadness, depression. It's so hard to see that. And I know I've found even just picking one tiny thing really does a world of good.
Yeah.
Like some even just being grateful that I have clean air to breathe, right?
Right.
I can open my windows anytime. I can walk outside. I don't have to worry about that. Even little things, just being like truly, truly grateful can really help a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to kind of go back to being a little reflective here. So, what does it mean to you now to live this unconventional life and have life after trauma?
What it really means to me is just surviving. And I look for one thing, at least one thing every day to be thankful for. And actually last year, I do remember this. Last year I challenged people on Facebook to say one kind thing to somebody every day. So for the whole year, I I just at random picked somebody from my Facebook members, and I said, and I tagged him and said, today I'm thankful for John Smith, and this is why. So to keep me going, I always want to lift everybody else up.
That's so beautiful. And you have continued to do that. So you didn't just stop at a podcast or your TikTok account. You actually wrote a book on this. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Yeah. So the book's called My Life Rewired. The publisher helped me change it to, she said, your podcast is called Life Rewired. She says, why not make your book My Life Rewired? She was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I submitted my my manuscript to her, and she said, "Yeah, I'll do your book." And then she says, "But there's more story in you." Like, is there? So yeah, my little mini book became a full fledged book, and they nailed the cover. I explained to her what I wanted, and it came out exactly how I asked it. But I didn't want my book to just be limited, because that's the one thing with brain injuries, you have so many limitations. I didn't want my book to be limited to just people with brain injuries, because I've had a lot of traumas in my life. And I thought, if I could have something that can put the brain injury out there to make awareness for that, but also help people heal from, if bullies, sexual traumas, anything like that, let's do it. And my wife, she came to me and she says, "Are you sure you want to put your whole life out there?" And I told her, I said, "I cannot help people if I can't be transparent." So yeah, I'm ready to put my whole story out there.
And what a huge step that is because when we're finally ready to tell everyone this is who we are, truly who we are, it's not only helping other people because you're
Mhm.
becoming that role model, whether you want to or not, right? That's
Right.
what you are. But it's so freeing for us as well. We're saying,
Yes.
this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And if you want to leave it, that's fine. I don't take any offense, but this is it. This is me. This is the
Yeah.
whole thing. That's so beautiful. It okay, so I know our listeners know I'm vegan, and I had so much anxiety about coming out as a vegan. I know it sounds kind of silly, but
Yeah.
it's not really accepted by the majority of people in our country. I get questions, I get looks, I get judged on it, and it was something that was hard for me to start telling people, or like going to lunch and dinner with people and I order like the one vegan thing on their menu, right? It
Yeah.
was really hard for me. So there is some freedom now in that. And once I was just like, "Hey, I'm vegan. Here's the 2 restaurants we can go to. Do you wanna join me, yes or no?"
Mhm.
Right? It was like, "Oh, like, it's fine." And you know what? They didn't even care, right?
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't even a big deal. It's just in my head. So how freeing for you that you could do that. You could say, "Here's who I am. I'm not just a person with a brain injury. I have a whole past, some of it great, some of it less than great, and this is me." And so
Yeah.
just the bravery and courageousness there is just really applauded. So amazing for you to do that.
Thank you.
So having talked about all this that we have, what's one thing you wish people understood about trauma or brain injury that people just don't get?
Well, the number one thing that a brain injury person gets from the mass majority of people is they'll hear this phrase, "You look great."
Okay.
You don't see what's going on behind this smile, you know?
Mm, mhm.
So that is so insulting to a brain injury person. So I really drove that home, and I don't have it with me, but I told the publisher when she made the bookmarks to accompany the book, I wanted it to say on the back some things not to say to a brain injury survivor, because you wouldn't walk up to somebody with a missing arm and go, "Hey, you look great except for the missing arm."
That's right.
So, but it's a whole mindset of, I had a person one time tell me, um, I drove to their house and they said, "Oh, you're better because you're driving." Like there's a connection between driving and a brain injury. So,
Mm,
so it's just that's why the
yeah.
education part is so important to me, because you don't know what you don't know.
I could not agree more with you. It's yeah, people, and not necessarily a fault of their own, but we know what we see on TV and in movies,
Hmm.
and that's what most people think,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's not to compare being vegan to having a brain injury. It's not the same, but I get the same thing. People are like, "What do you eat?" And I'm like, "I've been vegan for 8 years. I'm still alive, right? So."
Right.
I'm doing fine. Okay, so this has been such an amazing conversation, Rob, and we are winding down now. So we've got one last question for you. If you could go back and speak to yourself on the day everything changed, the moment your life took that unexpected turn, what would you say to that version of yourself?
I would tell you, your life is about to change, but change can be a good thing. Don't
Mm,
panic because there are brighter days ahead.
that's so beautiful. I'm going to put that on a post-it note on my computer. I think that's so beautiful. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
Well, Rob, this has been truly, truly inspiring having you on. And for our free spirits out there, Rob's story reminds us that healing isn't linear and that sometimes the detour becomes the most meaningful part of the journey. He's chosen not just to survive, but to uplift, to speak up, and laugh through the pain. And in doing so, he's given the rest of us permission to do the same. If today's episode moved you, please take a moment to share it with somebody who might need it. And if you want to hear more from Rob, check out his podcast, Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast. We'll drop the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening, free spirits. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream. Until next time.